The fields stretched far beyond the horizon, golden crops swaying under the late evening wind. In the middle of these endless plains, giant harvesters moved slowly but powerfully. Their blades spun with sharp speed, cutting everything in their path. The machines did not stop. They did not feel, they only consumed. And everyone in the village knew one simple truth: never stand in front of a harvester's blades. But that night something strange happened. A small figure stood near the edge of the field, tiny hands trembling, glowing alien eyes wide with fear. She was a young girl, fragile, her clothes torn and covered in dust. Her family had left her there, abandoned in the most merciless way. They had pushed her near the blades, whispering that she was weak, useless, unworthy, and when she cried for them, their backs turned cold. Their footsteps faded into the noise of the harvesters. The girl's chest rose and fell quickly. Her heart pounded as the ground shook with the machine's weight. The sharp hum of blades grew louder, closer. The villagers stood far away, some watching from a safe distance, but no one moved to help. They only shook their heads. Some even turned away. For them, this was not strange, it was tradition. The weak were left behind. The little girl hugged herself. She wanted to run, but her legs would not listen. She was frozen by fear. Her lips moved silently, calling for someone, anyone, but no one answered. She felt the heat of the harvester's engines pressing against her skin. The blades cut the air like angry whispers, closer, closer. The shadow of the machine loomed above her small body. Then, at the edge of the field, a human worker noticed her. He was not part of her family, not even part of her species. He had been repairing a broken fence, his hands still carrying dust and grease. His tired eyes blinked in disbelief when he saw the girl standing there. He dropped his tools at once. His heart stopped for a second. Then it raced faster than ever before. "She'll be crushed," he whispered under his breath. And without another thought, he began to run. His boots pounded against the dry ground. His lungs burned. The distance between him and the girl felt endless. The harvester roared louder, its blades shining with deadly light. The girl's glowing eyes locked onto him. A flicker of hope in her tear-streaked face, he shouted, waving his arms. But the sound of machines drowned his voice. Still, he did not stop. The villagers saw him. Some gasped, some laughed bitterly. They whispered among themselves, "The human is mad. Why risk his life for her? She is nothing. She is already lost." But he ignored their words. His focus was only on the child. The harvester's wheels tore through the earth, leaving deep scars. Dust rose in choking clouds. The girl coughed, her small body trembling. The human's legs ached, but he pushed harder. Every second felt heavier. The blades were now just steps away from the girl. The ground shook beneath her feet. She screamed, her voice high and desperate. And then, he leaped forward, arms outstretched. The impact was rough. He grabbed her tiny frame and rolled across the dirt. The blades sliced the air where she had been standing just a moment before. The machine roared past them, unstoppable, but the girl was safe in his arms. Her sobs shook against his chest. His heart thundered with relief. For a long moment, the crowd stood in silence. They had expected the harvester to claim her, not for a human to snatch her from death. The villagers' eyes widened, some in disbelief, some in quiet shame. The little girl clung to the man's shirt, her small hands gripping as if letting go meant death would return. The human panted, his body covered in dirt and sweat. He looked down at the girl. "You're safe now," he whispered gently. His voice was steady, yet his eyes carried both anger and sorrow. He could not understand how anyone could leave a child to die like this. The harvester continued on its path, blades slicing the crops as if nothing had happened. The night air grew colder, and silence fell heavier over the watching crowd. The human rose slowly, holding the girl close. His figure was small against the massive machine, but in that moment he felt stronger than any of them. The girl's tears soaked his shoulder, but slowly she lifted her head. Her voice was quiet, broken. Why did you help me?" He looked at her, and for a moment he could not answer. Because the truth was simple, yet too heavy for words. Finally, he said, "Because no one should be left behind." The crowd turned away, uncomfortable, unwilling to meet his eyes. Yet in the girl's gaze, a spark of trust began to grow for the first time. She believed she was not invisible, not forgotten, and as the human carried her away from the deadly blades, the night seemed to hold its breath. The forgotten child had been noticed, and that changed everything. The harvester rumbled away into the distance, its blades still spinning. its engines still roaring. But for the little alien girl, the danger was not gone. The memory of those blades stayed sharp in her mind. She shook in the human's arms, her breath shallow, her glowing eyes wide with fear. The human held her firmly. His heart still raced from the run. His arms ached, but he did not let go. He could feel how fragile she was, as if a strong wind might break her. He looked back at the crowd of villagers, expecting someone to step forward, someone from her own family. But nobody moved. They kept their distance, whispering among themselves. Some looked ashamed, others looked angry. But none of them came closer. He frowned. "She needs help," he said aloud. But the only answer he got was silence. Finally, one old villager muttered, "You should not have saved her. Human, she was meant for the blades. That is our way." The words burned in his ears. He looked down at the girl, who clung to him tighter. He shook his head. "Your way is wrong," he said quietly. His voice was steady, but inside he was boiling with anger. The girl's voice was barely a whisper. "They left me. They said I am weak. They said I am not worth food, not worth space in the house." Her small body trembled harder as she spoke. Her words cut deeper than any blade. The human's chest tightened. He could not understand how any family could speak those words to their own child. The harvester's shadow faded as the night grew darker. Stars appeared overhead, cold and distant. The wind carried the smell of cut crops, and dust clung to their skin. The human adjusted his hold on the girl and began walking. His steps were heavy but determined. He would not leave her here, not again. As he walked, he felt the villagers' eyes follow him. Some muttered that he was foolish. Some even laughed bitterly. "Humans are soft," one whispered. "They do not understand survival." But there were also a few pairs of young eyes watching with wonder. Alien children peeked from behind their parents. Their expressions were not mocking, but curious, as if seeing something new for the first time. The girl buried her face in his chest. "They will come for me," she said. "Not to take me back, but to punish you. They will not forgive this. No one breaks tradition." Her words were soft but heavy with fear. The human slowed. He understood now that saving her was not the end of danger. It was only the beginning. Yet when he looked down at her, he saw a child who had been thrown away, and he knew he could not abandon her no matter the cost. He reached the edge of the farm where his small shelter stood. It was a rough place built of scrap wood and old metal, but it was warm and safe. He pushed the door open with his shoulder, carrying her inside. The light of a small lantern filled the room with a soft glow. He set her gently on a blanket near the fire pit. Her eyes darted around, wide and nervous. She had never been inside a human shelter before. He knelt beside her, offering a small cup of water. She hesitated, then took it, drinking in quick gulps. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and whispered, "Why did you save me? You could have walked away like them." He looked at her carefully. His rough hands rested on his knees. His voice was calm. "Because you are alive, because you matter. Because no child should be left to die." Her lips parted, but no words came out. Instead, her eyes filled with tears. She had never heard anyone speak like that to her. The warmth of the blanket, the water in her throat, the steady presence of the human. It felt like another world compared to the cold rejection of her family. Outside, the sound of footsteps broke the quiet. The human stood quickly, his muscles tense. Shadows moved just beyond the window. Low voices muttered in the alien tongue. He knew the villagers had followed him. Some wanted answers. Others perhaps wanted revenge. The girl grabbed his arm, her eyes wide with panic. "They will take me back. They will hurt you," she whispered. He placed his hand gently over hers. "Not while I am here," he said. His voice was steady, stronger than the fear filling the room. The door rattled as someone knocked. The human stood tall, his heart steady now. He had already chosen his path. The girl behind him, the villagers outside, and the weight of tradition pressing down. The night was heavy with silence, and in that silence, one truth grew clear. This was only the beginning of a battle he never asked for, but could not walk away from. The harvester had not claimed the child, but something far greater was now set in motion. The human knew it, and deep inside, so did the forgotten girl. Their fates were tied, and time was running against them both. The night was deep, and the little alien girl sat close to the fire, her small hands rubbed together for warmth. The human watched her quietly, his thoughts heavy. He could still hear the voices of the villagers outside, but for now they had left. Silence filled the shelter. broken only by the soft crackle of flames. The girl's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Her face was thin, her cheeks hollow. It was clear she had not eaten properly in days. The human pushed a small bowl of food toward her. Simple bread and stew. She hesitated at first, her fingers trembling. Then she picked up the bread and began to eat quickly, as if someone might take it away. The human's chest tightened. "Slow down," he said softly. "It's yours. No one will take it." She looked at him, uncertain. Her voice was small. "They always took it, my brothers, my sisters. They said I didn't deserve food. They said I was weak." Her words carried no anger, only sadness, as if cruelty had become normal to her. The human clenched his jaw. He wanted to shout, but he stayed calm for her sake. "You're not weak," he said firmly. "You're alive. That is strength." She blinked at him. Her eyes shimmered with tears she tried to hold back. "Then why did my family leave me? Why did they put me in front of the blades?" The human took a deep breath, searching for words. "Sometimes people follow cruel traditions. They believe it keeps them strong, but cruelty does not make anyone strong. It only destroys." The girl hugged her knees, rocking slightly. "I don't have a home now. They don't want me." Her voice cracked as she said it. Her glowing eyes looked around the small shelter. "Is this my home now?" The human's heart ached. He reached out, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. "If you want it to be, then yes. This can be your home for the first time." A tiny spark of hope flickered in her eyes. She leaned into his touch, as if trying to believe his words. Outside, the wind howled across the empty fields, carrying with it the smell of cut crops and the distant hum of harvesters still working through the night. The human stared into the fire, knowing the girl's family might return, knowing the villagers would not stay silent forever. But for this moment, his duty was simple: give her safety, give her warmth, give her the one thing she had never been given before, a chance to belong. As the girl finished her meal, she began to ask questions. Her curiosity broke through her fear. "Why are you here, human? Why do you work in the fields?" He smiled faintly. "Because I came from far away. My people needed work. This place needed workers. So I stayed. It is not much, but it is life." She tilted her head. "Do you have a family?" His smile faded slightly. "No, not anymore." His eyes darkened, shadows crossing his face. He did not explain further, and she did not push. Instead, she whispered, "Then maybe we are the same, both without family." The human looked at her, and for a moment silence grew heavy between them. Then he nodded slowly. "Maybe we are the same." The girl yawned, exhaustion finally pulling at her small body. The human laid another blanket beside the fire. "Rest here," he said gently. "You are safe tonight." She curled up on the blanket, her tiny form almost disappearing in the folds of fabric. Within minutes, her breathing slowed, her face relaxing into sleep, for the first time in her life. Her dreams did not begin with fear. The human watched her closely. His mind raced with questions. Why had no one else cared? Why was compassion so rare in this place? He clenched his fists. He was only one man, one human among many. Yet tonight he had seen how one choice could change everything. As the firelight flickered across the walls of the shelter, he made a quiet promise to himself. He would protect her no matter the cost. If the villagers came, if her family returned, if the whole world turned against them, he would stand between her and danger. She had no home, but she would not face this world alone again. The night dragged on, stars wheeling above the silent plains. In the distance, wolves howled, and the harvesters' engines roared like mechanical beasts. But inside the small shelter, the forgotten child finally rested. Her body warm, her belly full, her heart slowly daring to believe she mattered. And the human sitting beside her knew he had already crossed a line he could never step back from. This was no longer just about saving her from the blades. This was about giving her life meaning, about giving her the home she had been denied. The girl had no home when the night began, but now, in the faint glow of a human's fire, a new home was beginning to form. Morning came slowly over the wide fields. The first rays of sunlight turned the crops gold, and the harvesters rested silent for a short time. In the small shelter, the human stepped outside. His eyes scanning the quiet village beyond the fields, he knew the silence was dangerous. It meant the villagers were thinking, whispering, planning, inside. The little alien girl was still asleep, curled under the blanket near the fire. Her breathing was calm, but her grip on the fabric was tight. Even in dreams, she feared losing the safety she had found. The human adjusted the door so she would not be disturbed, then walked toward the village square. His steps were heavy but steady. The villagers were already gathered. They spoke in low voices, some casting glances toward his shelter. Their words carried a mix of fear, anger, and curiosity. The human felt their eyes on him. Sharp as knives, one woman hissed, "The human stole the child from the blades. He broke our way," another replied. "Maybe the blades were never meant for her. Maybe we have followed tradition too long." But most shook their heads. "He is dangerous. He does not respect us. If he protects her, others will start to question, and that will break everything." The human stood tall in the middle of their circle. His voice was calm but firm. "I did not steal her. I saved her. You all saw what her family did. You saw how close she was to death. If that is your way, then it is cruel." A silence spread through the crowd. The elders exchanged uneasy glances. Some villagers muttered in agreement, but many folded their arms in defiance. Finally, an elder spoke, his voice deep and heavy with years. "Human, you should not interfere. She was abandoned as our law requires. You have placed yourself above us by saving her. That cannot be allowed." The human clenched his fists but forced his voice to remain steady. "I do not place myself above anyone, but I will not stand by while a child is thrown to her death. If that makes me an enemy to your law, then so be it." The villagers gasped at his boldness. Some whispered that he was reckless, others that he was brave. Among the crowd, a few young faces stared at him with shining eyes. They had never seen anyone defy the elders so openly. The idea that tradition could be challenged was new, frightening, and strangely exciting. Back in the shelter, the girl woke slowly. She rubbed her glowing eyes and looked around. Her first thought was fear that she had been taken back. But then she saw the blanket, the fire, the human's tools lying by the wall. Relief washed over her. She whispered to herself, "He kept me safe." She stepped outside and saw the villagers gathered. The sound of their voices carried to her small ears. She hid behind the doorframe. Listening, the elders warned again, "If you keep her, human, she will bring curse. The machines will break. The harvest will fail. You will bring ruin on us all." The human shook his head. "The harvesters fail because of time, because of metal. Not because of children, you know this, but you hide behind fear." His words cut deep. Some of the villagers lowered their heads, ashamed, but others grew more furious. Tradition was all they had known. To question it felt like breaking the ground beneath their feet. The little girl stepped forward without meaning to. Her voice shook but carried across the square. "He saved me. You left me. If I am a curse, then why am I alive? If the blades wanted me, why did they not take me?" Gasps spread through the crowd. The elders turned to her in shock. No abandoned child had ever spoken back. Her words felt like a spark landing on dry wood. The human moved to her side quickly, his protective hand resting on her shoulder. She stood close to him, trembling. But she did not look away from the villagers. For a long moment no one spoke. The whispers had stopped. The only sound was the wind rushing through the fields. Finally, a younger villager, no more than a teenager, whispered loudly enough for others to hear, "She is not weak. She is braver than all of us." The elders scowled. Their authority was cracking, and they knew it. They pointed toward the human. "This is your doing. You have made her bold. You have made the young question their place. This will not end here." The crowd began to break apart. Some left quickly, muttering in anger. Others stayed, whispering in doubt. The girl clung to the human's side, her small hand gripping his shirt. He looked down at her and smiled faintly. "You were brave," he said. She shook her head. "I was scared." He crouched so his eyes met hers. "Courage is not being without fear. It is speaking even when fear is heavy. You did that." Her lips curved into the smallest smile. For the first time, she began to feel stronger, not because of her family's harsh words, but because someone finally believed in her. As the day wore on, the whispers in the village grew louder. Some said the human must be punished, others said perhaps the old ways were wrong. A divide had begun, and it would only grow sharper with time. The human knew this was only the beginning. Protecting the girl had saved her from the blades, but now they both stood against something far larger than a machine. They stood against the weight of tradition, the pride of elders, and the fear of change. And as the sun dipped low once again, the human looked at the girl and silently promised her the same thing he had promised himself. He would not let her face it alone. The days that followed were tense. The village was divided. Some whispered that the human was brave. Others cursed his name, but none dared to act openly. They waited, watching, letting the weight of their tradition sit like a blade above his head. Inside the small shelter, the little alien girl slowly began to smile again. She ate her meals, asked questions about human tools, and sometimes laughed softly when the human showed her tricks. Her glowing eyes no longer held only fear. They carried a spark of hope. But that fragile peace was broken one cold evening. The sound of footsteps echoed outside. Heavy and angry, the human stood quickly. His instincts sharp, he pushed the girl gently behind him. "Stay quiet," he whispered. His eyes fixed on the door. The door burst open, and her family stepped inside. Their faces were hard, their eyes burning with something between shame and fury. The girl gasped, shrinking back, her small voice trembled. "Father, Mother," and her father's voice was rough. "You should not be here, you should not exist. We left you for the blades, and yet this human broke the law." The human stepped forward, placing himself between them and the child. His tone was steady. "You abandoned her. She is no longer yours. She is safe with me now," her mother hissed. "Safe? She is a curse. She will drain us all. We left her because it was right, and you dare keep her?" The girl clutched the human's shirt, her glowing eyes filled with tears. But this time she did not hide completely. She whispered, "Why? Why did you throw me away? I only wanted to be loved." Her father's face twisted, but he did not answer. He looked at the human instead. "Give her back, human, or you will pay." The human's fists clenched. His muscles were tense, but his voice did not shake. "No, I will not hand her to people who see her as nothing. If you want her, you will have to go through me." The silence that followed was heavy. The family's anger burned hotter. Her older brothers stepped forward, tall and strong. Their hands gripped farming tools like weapons. The girl's breath quickened. She clung tighter, whispering, "Please don't let them take me." The brothers lunged, and the human moved fast. He caught the first strike with his arm, pain shooting through him, but he did not fall. He shoved the attacker back and swung hard. His fist connected. The sound echoed in the small shelter. The second brother swung, but the human ducked, grabbing him by the collar and forcing him against the wall. The father shouted, "Stop this madness!" But his voice held no power. The human's eyes burned with determination. He stood tall, bruised but unbroken. His stance made it clear. He would not surrender the girl. The mother stepped forward, her face twisted with rage. "She is ours. You cannot keep her. You are just a human. Nothing more." The human met her gaze, his voice low but strong. "Maybe I am nothing to you, but to her I am someone who cares, and that is enough." The girl stepped out from behind him. Trembling but brave, her small voice rose. "I choose him. I choose to stay with the human. You left me. You wanted me gone. But he saved me. He gave me food. He gave me warmth. He gave me a home." Her words struck harder than any fist. The family froze, shocked. The mother's face paled. The father's hands shook for the first time. They had to face the truth. This child no longer belonged to them. The human placed his hand on her shoulder. Steady and protective. "You heard her choice," he said. "Now leave." The father's eyes burned with shame, but he turned away, pulling his wife by the arm. The brothers followed, muttering threats. Their footsteps faded into the night, but the tension they left behind was heavy. The girl collapsed against the human. Her body shaking with sobs, he knelt and held her close, whispering, "It's over, you're safe," but in his heart, he knew it was not truly over. Her family would not forgive this. They would spread anger through the village. They would push the elders to act. The real storm was only beginning. Still, as he held the child, he felt her tears slow, her breathing calm. She had faced her family and spoken her truth. That strength could not be taken away. Outside, the wind howled, carrying whispers through the fields, whispers of rebellion, whispers of change. The villagers would soon have to choose a side, tradition or compassion, cruelty or courage. And at the center of it all stood one human and one abandoned child, bound together not by blood but by the choice to protect each other. The next day dawned heavy with silence. The villagers did not greet each other as they usually did. Instead, they whispered in corners, casting sharp glances toward the human's shelter. The story of the fight had already spread. How the human stood against the girl's family. How the child herself had spoken. It was a tale that tore the village apart. The elders could not ignore it any longer. By evening, they called for a gathering in the square. The entire village assembled under the shadow of the harvesters, whose massive blades gleamed in the fading light. The air was thick with tension. The human walked into the square with the girl at his side. She clutched his hand tightly, her glowing eyes filled with both fear and determination. Whispers ran through the crowd like fire through dry grass. Some called her a curse, others called her brave. All eyes turned to the elders seated at the front. Their faces carved from stone, the eldest stood, his voice carrying across the square. This matter cannot be left to chance. The child was abandoned, but she lives. The human defied our ways to save her, and now the village is divided. Tonight a choice must be made. The child will speak, and her fate will be decided before us all. The human's jaw tightened. He wanted to argue, but the girl tugged at his hand. Whispering, "Let me speak, I am ready." He looked at her, his chest heavy with pride and worry. She was still so small, yet her courage burned bright. He nodded slowly. "Then speak your truth," he said softly. The crowd parted as the girl stepped forward. Her knees shook, her hands trembled, but she stood straight. The harvesters behind her groaned as if the machines themselves were listening. Her voice began small. "All my life I was told I was weak. I was told I did not deserve food or love or a home. My family left me to die before the blades, and none of you stopped them." Her words carried pain, but also fire. She lifted her chin, her glowing eyes locking with the crowd. But the human stopped. The human saw me. He held me when I was afraid. He fed me when I was hungry. He gave me a place to sleep, and for the first time, I felt safe. Gasps ran through the villagers. Some bowed their heads in shame. Others clenched their fists in anger. She took a deep breath. "So here is my choice. I choose him. I choose to stay with the human. He is my family now. He gave me a home when my own blood would not. If you call me a curse, then I say your cruelty is the curse. If you call me weak, then I say your hearts are weaker for abandoning a child." The silence that followed was heavy and deep. The elders shifted uncomfortably. Their power was built on fear and tradition, but this small voice had cracked their foundation. The human stepped beside her, resting his hand on her shoulder. His voice rose strong and steady. "You have heard her choice. She belongs with me now, not with those who left her. If your law cannot accept that, then your law is broken." Murmurs spread. Some villagers nodded in agreement. Others shouted in anger, "Tradition must stand." One cried, but another shouted back, "And what has tradition given us? Nothing but loss." The crowd began to split, arguments rising louder. The elders slammed their staffs on the ground. "Enough!" The eldest roared, "The child has spoken, and though it shames us, her choice must be honored. But hear this. Human, you have set fire to our ways. Do not think the consequences are over." The human met the elder's stare without flinching. "I am ready for whatever comes," he said. His voice was calm, but his heart pounded. He knew this was only the beginning. The villagers began to disperse slowly, some shaking their heads, others whispering in awe. A few young ones stared at the girl with admiration. Their eyes held questions about whether they too could choose something different. The girl leaned against the human as they walked back toward the shelter, her small hand gripping his tightly. Her voice was soft but steady. "I spoke. I told them I am not afraid anymore." He smiled faintly. "You were stronger than anyone here tonight." She looked up at him. "Do you think they will leave us alone now?" His expression darkened. He glanced back at the square where the elders still stood, their faces hard. "No," he said quietly. "They will not. But no matter what happens, you are not alone. I will always stand with you." The girl nodded, her heart lighter for the first time. She truly believed him for the first time. She truly believed in herself. As the night deepened, the stars spread across the sky. The wind carried away the last whispers of the gathering. But in the hearts of the villagers, something new had begun to grow. Tradition had been challenged and courage had been seen. And at the center of it all stood one human and one forgotten child. No longer forgotten, but chosen. The days after the gathering were unlike any the village had ever known. The choice of the child echoed in every corner. Some spoke her name with anger, others with respect, but no one could ignore her anymore. The girl who had once been thrown away now stood at the heart of every whisper. The human kept working the fields as always, fixing fences, repairing tools, guiding the harvesters when they broke down. But wherever he went, the girl followed. Her small steps matched his larger ones. Her glowing eyes watching everything. She no longer hid in shadows. She walked with her head a little higher, knowing she had spoken her truth and survived. Yet the tension in the village was sharp. The elders were restless. The family that had abandoned her lived in silence, their shame too heavy to carry. Some villagers still scowled when they saw her, muttering that she should have been left. But others quietly began to question, could a child truly be cursed? Or had they been blind all along? One evening, a group of young villagers came to the humans' shelter. They stood awkwardly at the door, shifting on their feet. Finally, one of them, a boy no older than 15, spoke. We want to help, we want to learn from you." The human frowned. "Learn what?" The boy's voice grew steadier. "To be brave, to stand for something like you did." The girl peeked from behind the human, her glowing eyes wide with surprise. She whispered, "They are not mocking us." The boy shook his head quickly. "No, we are tired of fear. We want to be different." The human studied them, then slowly nodded. "Then watch closely. Courage is not only in fighting, it is in kindness. It is in refusing to turn away." The girl smiled, her heart swelling. For so long she had been told she was weak. Now others looked at her with admiration. Days turned into weeks, and a quiet change began. The young started helping the human with his work. They carried tools, asked questions, and sometimes shared food. The elders saw this and grew uneasy, but even they could not silence curiosity once it had begun. One night, the girl sat beside the human under the stars. The field stretched wide around them, glowing under the pale moons. She looked up at him and asked softly, "Do you think I am still cursed?" He shook his head firmly. "No, you are not cursed. You are proof that even the smallest voice can change the world." She leaned against his arm, her voice tiny but steady. "Then maybe I was never weak. Maybe they just did not see me." He smiled faintly. "They see you now, and that is enough." But peace was not easy. The family returned once more, their eyes full of bitterness. They shouted in the square that the human had poisoned the village, that the child had twisted their ways. Yet this time the villagers did not stay silent. A woman stepped forward and said, "No, it is not she who cursed us. It was our cruelty that cursed us. We let fear rule us, and we abandoned our own." Others joined, one voice becoming many. For the first time, the elders had no power to silence them. The tide had turned. The girl stood in the square beside the human, her small frame steady, her voice clear. "You called me nothing. But I am still here. You called me weak, but I am stronger now. And I am not alone." She looked up at the human, then back at the crowd. "This is my family, the one who saved me, the one who saw me." Her words broke the last chains of silence. The villagers lowered their heads, some wept quietly, ashamed. The human placed his hand on her shoulder. His heart proud, he knew she had found her place, not through blood but through choice. In the weeks that followed, the village began to change. Slowly, painfully but truly. Children were no longer abandoned so easily, elders grumbled, but their voices no longer carried the same weight. The human's small shelter became a place of learning, of gathering, of quiet hope. The girl grew stronger each day. Her laughter echoed through the fields, her steps no longer small and uncertain. She ran beside the harvesters, fearless, her glowing eyes no longer symbols of weakness, but of courage. And the human who once thought himself alone found himself surrounded by something he never expected. Respect, trust, even friendship. He had not only saved a child, he had planted a seed of change that no blade could cut down. On one quiet night, as the harvesters rested and the stars filled the sky, the girl looked up at him and whispered, "Do you think we changed them?" He looked at her, his eyes soft. "Yes, we changed them, and one day, they will thank you for it." She smiled, her small hand slipping into his. "Then I am not forgotten anymore." "No," he said, his voice steady. "You are the beginning," and with that, the forgotten child and the lone human walked forward into a new dawn, no longer bound by fear, but carrying hope strong enough to change a world.